What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor at UFC 300. It's incredibly rare to see two fighters compete against one another 4 times inside the octagon. When it comes to Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, despite the pair having already shared the octagon 3 times, McGregor has maintained that there's unfinished business given the injury that ended their most recent contest. At the time of the injury, McGregor made it clear that the rivalry wasn't over, something that he recently doubled down on during a Q&A with fans. In response, Dustin Poirier fired back during an interview with Megan O'Leary for ESPN on Saturday.
We'll see. I probably would try to shut him up once and for all, but even if I slap his ass around again, he's still going to be chatting, so we'll see. Is him and Chandler official for that? I don't know what's going on. That could be another, that's a huge fight. 2-1 against him. I don't really see another reason for it, but it'd be a huge fight.
Poirier, of course, recently stated that he wanted to return to action at UFC 300, with many fans assuming that McGregor will also return on the card as well, despite UFC CEO Dana White stating that he would return over the summer. Ahead of his return, McGregor has been training at the UFC gym in Dubai, with former PFL featherweight champ Brendan Loughnane, giving fans a glimpse of his training in social media. While McGregor's return will be in the octagon, he has long teased a bare-knuckle bout, something former rival Eddie Alvarez thinks he would do well at. Speaking to Morning Combat ahead of his clash with Mike Perry, he shared his thoughts on a potential move.
I think he has a good style for it just because, like I said, that fencing style where you're in and out and you're not taking shots to give shots, you're not that kind of, not like Mexican fighting, I wouldn't say that that's conducive for bare knuckle. I think that bouncy back and forth tag your it style makes for a very good bare knuckle fighter. So Conor has that style. I think
With plenty of options for McGregor going forward, all roads begin with his return to the octagon next year. Next up, let's take a look at Ian Garry receives backlash for comment. As Ian Garry gears up for his highly anticipated clash with Vicente Luque on December 16th, the undefeated Irish star has drawn some criticism from fans for a recent comment on Instagram. From the looks of things, Vicente Luque was recently baptized, sharing the moment on Instagram along with a caption which read, "I have believed in him and seen how much he has blessed me all my life. In the good moments and in the hard ones, he always got me through and strengthened me. Now I walk in the way as he guides me to his kingdom. Thank you, Jesus." In the comments, Garry wrote back, "December 16th, he'll be standing in front of you, tall, blonde, and all-powerful." While some laughed off the comment, others took aim at Garry, with one fan writing, "This isn't promoting. Ian Garry is just a straight-up bull. Can't wait for Luque to knock his jaw off." Another man added, "Man, I was starting to like Garry, and I think a lot of people were, until the whole Neil Magny situation. He stated the UFC with so much hate, and I felt like he got out of that wannabe Conor McGregor role. I'm rooting against him too." Another fan weighed in on the situation, writing, "He's quickly became one of my least favorite fighters. Why even say this?" Another fan used the station to attempt to manifest a Luque win, writing, "Vicente is sending him to the shadow realm. I can't wait." Given that Garry and Luque had trained together, it'll be interesting to see if the comments spawn some bad blood between the two heading into UFC 296. Now, let's shift gears and take a look at Tom Aspinall responds to Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo recently took aim at interim heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall for his celebration after defeating Sergey Pavlovich at UFC 295. Given that Aspinall had injured his back prior to the fight and had still won the biggest fight of his career, he became emotional, shedding tears in a moment that UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier defended. The way Henry Cejudo saw things, however, Aspinall was celebrating as if he had won an undisputed title, which was not the case. During a recent interview with Michael Bisping after returning to the UK, the interim champ fired back at Triple C.
have you seen Henry Cejudo's comments?
No, I don't watch that little squirt. It doesn't matter to me, mate, what he says. To be honest,
Yeah.
He's about 5'3". If he spoke, I probably wouldn't hear him. He's that far away from me. So, yeah, doesn't matter.
Cejudo, of course, brings some bias to the situation, given that he's friends with heavyweight champion Jon Jones, and helped Jones train for his return fight against Ciryl Gane. While the expectation is that Jones will retire after his fight with Stipe Miocic, win or lose, many have held out hope that he will stick around for one more fight with Tom Aspinall, should he defeat Miocic. Next, let's take a look at UFC fight updates. On the heels of an action-packed night of fights at the Apex that saw Brendan Allen dispatch of Paul Craig, let's take a look at some upcoming fight announcements for the new year, starting with a middleweight clash with Roman Dolidze and Nasruddin Imavov on February 3rd, which comes on the heels of Dolidze announcing that he had signed a contract to fight. The bout will see Dolidze look to bounce back after a loss to Marvin Vettori, while Imavov will be looking to return to the win column after no contest against Chris Curtis. In addition, a clash between Victor Altamirano and Felipe Dos Santos will be taking place on February 24th, as well as a rematch between Edgar Chairez and Daniel Lacerda. The event, which has not been confirmed by the UFC, is reportedly targeted for Mexico, although the UFC has yet to share any official details about the fight or the card. Altamirano will be entering his fight with Dos Santos after dropping a decision to Tim Elliott over the summer, while Dos Santos will be looking to bounce back from a September loss to Manel Kape. In the case of the bout between Chairez and Lacerda, the fight will be a highly anticipated rematch between the two after a premature stoppage resulted in a no contest back in September. Next, let's take a look at UFC fighter sends message to Sean Strickland. Following his win over Paul Craig at the Apex, Brendan Allen called for a #1 contender fight at middleweight. After rattling off 6 straight wins since a TKO loss to Chris Curtis back in 2021, Allen believes that the time is now for he and Sean Strickland to run back their 2020 catchweight bout. He spoke during the UFC post-fight show on ESPN.
We'll see what happens. I hope the UFC sees that and knows that I am the next big thing. I've been in there with Sean. I was a lot younger. I was a lot immature mentally, and I think I was still winning that fight. I just made a bad audible, and I got caught. I'm happy he's the champion. Congrats to him. I think he's a funny guy. Like, he plays the antics, but that all aside, I know in my heart I'm better, and I think he does too, but we'll see what happens.
Does he beat Dricus?
Strickland, of course, is gearing up for a highly anticipated showdown with Dricus du Plessis at the Apex, which will see him look to make his first successful title defense. Given that Allen entered his recent fight with Paul Craig as the number 10 ranked fighter, it's likely that he has to win at least one more fight before getting a potential #1 contender fight. Next, let's take a look at Daniel Cormier reveals shocking news. Although many view Daniel Cormier as one of the best heavyweights of all time, the Hall of Famer believes that he wasn't even the best heavyweight to come out of American Kickboxing Academy. As he explained during a recent interview with MMA Fighting, Cain Velasquez, at the prime of his career, was a fighter nobody wanted any part of.
If that dude was healthy and ready to go, I still believe he was the best fighter, man. Ask me, ask Habib, ask the guys that saw him in the gym when he was healthy and he was good. Nobody was like Cain, man. Nobody was like Cain.
Think
about his accolades, and he had to miss 5-6 years in the middle of his prime because of injury.
Yeah.
Crazy. He was the best, man. I'm telling you right now, as one of the guys that everybody calls the best, this dude was the best. He was the best, because he was better than me for sure.
Velasquez was, of course, one of the most feared fighters of his era. However, as Cormier pointed out, injuries largely derailed his best years. Despite that, he managed to capture the heavyweight title twice, giving fans a number of memories and highlight reel finishes before hanging up his gloves. Next up, let's take a look at Islam Makhachev sends warning to Dana White. Islam Makhachev has expressed his desire to move up and fight at welterweight in pursuit of champ status. However, he recently expressed just how bad he wants to make the move to 170. During a Russian-speaking interview, which was translated by Young and Faded MMA Society, Makhachev was asked if he wanted to move up to 170, to which he responded, "If they offer me that, then yes, 100%. I'm not going to miss out on such opportunity." Makhachev was then asked if he wanted to be a double champion, simply stating that there's no other reason to continue fighting besides chasing 2-division champ status. Yes, certainly, 100%, or else I don't see a reason to continue fighting anymore. Makhachev, of course, will first compete against Charles Oliveira in a highly anticipated rematch next year. After dispatching of Alexander Volkanovski to close out 2023, Makhachev expressed his desire to return in March. Dana White then in turn said that Makhachev versus Oliveira 2 would likely happen over the summer. In the meantime, Leon Edwards and Colby Covington will compete in a pay-per-view headliner next month. If Makhachev is able to successfully defend his title this summer, the UFC could entertain the idea of a welterweight move. Khamzat Chimaev calls out Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight title. After struggling to get a finish on Kamaru Usman in the middleweight division, Khamzat has his eyes on the title, and this time it's for light heavyweight. He posted on his Twitter saying to Dana White, Let me finish him with a picture of him and Alex Pereira. The PFL has officially acquired Bellator at an undisclosed price. CEO Don Davis had this to say about the acquisition. This totally changes the MMA landscape overnight. You essentially put two number 2 companies to create a co-leader. The combined PFL Bellator roster now has 30% of its fighters who are ranked top 25 in the world by Fight Matrix. That's the same as UFC has in their roster. Damon Martin posted on Twitter revealing a champ versus champ card with PFL and Bellator. He said PFL versus Bellator MMA card could potentially take place as early as February 2024 with the champs versus champs on pay-per-view. Here are some reactions from the MMA community. Jake Paul said,
"News: the PFL has acquired Bellator. This is insane news for the whole entire industry and makes PFL even more of a global powerhouse with a fight roster now equal to that of the UFC's. And we have some challenges. Let's prove it. Their champions versus our champions. Let's make it happen. Come on now."
He also sent a message to Nate Diaz. "Nate, we can do it in PFL or Bellator. Don't be scared, homie. Call Mike. He's Team PFL now." Megan Anderson said, "This is huge for the sport. It'll be interesting to see how everything pans out moving forward." Nolan King, MMA Junkie, said, "This is a massive day for MMA. The UFC's not going to be dethroned anytime soon, if ever, but what kind of impact will an absolute number 2 powerhouse have on the sport as a whole? We're about to find out." Fun. Top comments. Henry's basically saying, "Look guys, I did a lot better than him. I'm the only one that's allowed to cry when achieving big things." Casuals bashing Beltran shows their ignorance. I challenge you to find another fight that Beltran made this type of mistake. It's a fast-paced sport and shit happens. Beltran has nothing to do with UFC pay structure. Not only did Tom get that belt, he also took an extremely short notice fight against an extremely dangerous fighter, and he ended it quick. There's much reason for him to celebrate and cry if he chooses. Henry's still salty that he got smashed by Aljo. Make sure to leave a comment and you might get featured in our next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss any MMA news. Check out our video from yesterday if you missed it. See you tomorrow.